Mahatma Gandhi needs no introduction. We know Albert Einstein's famous words on Gandhi. Generations to come will scarce believe that such a one as this, ever in flesh and blood, walked upon this earth. Nelson Mandela of South Africa referred to Gandhi as the sacred warrior. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. of the United States saw Gandhi as his teacher and guide. Most people, Europeans, Americans, Africans, Indians, today know what they know about Gandhi from Ben Kingsley's Oscar award-winning screen portrayal. The movie Gandhi was well made, no doubt, but the script barely captured the unbelievable life of the real man, who was at the same time a canny politician and an earnest social reformer, a traditionalist and a revolutionary, a believer in nonviolence, but opposed to cowardice. Over the years, many books have been written about Gandhi, and many more will be written. But for most of us, we need to know much more about him than we do. Even when Gandhi was alive, many were already writing his obituary. Ever since his tragic and senseless death in 1948, newspapers have bemoaned the end of his legacy. However, to paraphrase Mark Twain's famous words, the reports of the demise of Gandhi's legacy are greatly exaggerated. Gandhi lives on in our hearts and in our minds, while the non-violent, peaceful, egalitarian world he envisioned may be the perfection we can never really achieve. We can, like him, try to become better day by day in our own lives. Be the change you want to see in the world, he told us more than 7 decades back. More timeless words have rarely been spoken. Namaste, bonjour, shalom. Welcome to our interview with Ms. Santosh Bakaya, author of Ballad of Bapu. Ms. Bakaya is what we call a serial author with several books to her credit. The book we're discussing today describes the incredible story of Mahatma Gandhi, the apostle of peace and nonviolence, in verse. In other words, she uses poetry to present the story of Gandhi. Santoshji, welcome and thank you for taking the time to talk to our audience.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute honor to be here.
And Santoshji, let me start with the first question. Can you give us a 30 to 40-second elevator pitch of your book?
Okay, sure. This book is different. Here it is, Ballad of Bapu. It is different in the sense that it is a poetic biography of Bapu, written in the rhyme scheme of a limerick, A-A-B-B-A. It is written in the rhyme scheme of a limerick. So it is different.
And could you tell the audience who may not know what that means, a rhyme scheme of a limerick?
Okay, I'll just, Edward Lear is said to be the father of limericks, and one of the limericks I'm going to recite for you, Edward Lear's. There was a man from Nantucket who kept all his cash in a bucket. He had a daughter named Nan who ran away with a man, and as for the bucket, Nan took it. So that is the rhyme scheme, A-A-B-B-A. So this is a famous limerick of Edward Lear. So this entire is written in the rhyme scheme of a limerick, A-A-B-B-A. 300 pages.
And in a few minutes, I'll come back to how you got interested in writing in this style. But what motivated you to write a book about Mahatma Gandhi? There are so many books about him already.
Okay, I was never interested in writing a book about Mahatma Gandhi because as it is, I'm a scatterbrained sort of a writer. I keep hopping from one topic to the next. And I keep telling everyone that there are compartments in my brain, and and simultaneously I'm writing on 10 scripts. So this was not in my mind. But one day in my MPhil class, one of the students, he prided himself on being a kavi. मैं कवि हूँ मैडम, and you are always talking of Mahatma Gandhi. I don't like Mahatma Gandhi, and I'll not read anything about Mahatma Gandhi. I want you to write a poetic biography of Mahatma Gandhi. Only then I'll read something about Gandhi. I said, please read. He said, nothing doing, madam. I'm not going to read. So this was a challenge thrown at me by an MPhil student who prided himself on being a kavi. And right now he's a kavi. He's a well-known kavi. And he was the one who threw this challenge at me. Madam, write a poetic biography of Mahatma Gandhi. Only then will I read it. So I took this as a challenge and I started writing. And because I used to write limericks. So this limerick, AABBA rhyme scheme, clicked and I started writing. And I had no idea that I would be able to finish this. But then I finished it. And Renu Kaul Verma, she's my friend. She somehow came to know about this and she kept browbeating me, pushing me, prodding me, cajoling me, doing what, I don't know what. And I had to finish it. Because as I told you earlier, I had forgotten this midway because I had hopped on to another novel. A novel. So I had forgotten everything about it. But then I remember Renu Kaul Verma called me up one morning. I was in a seminar and she asked me, where's the book? So I started writing again. So this
Santoshi,
is how
I'll be honest with you. When I started reading the book, the first thought in my head was, how is she going to write the entire life story in poetry? I want to see where the poetry stops being interesting. And it did not stop being interesting till the end. So I was very impressed.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was just my passion, and the stick that Renu Kaul Verma wielded. If she's there, she should listen to this. She wielded this stick. I'd forgotten everything about the book. I had written about 20, 30 pages and I thought I'll not be able to do it. But then one day, not one day, many times she asked me, where's the book? Where's the book? So I had to complete it.
So some of our audience members may not have read the book. Could you maybe tell us what your favorite stanza is, the favorite limerick from the book? One favorite limerick.
This book is very dear to me. Firstly, because of the fact that I did not know that I would be able to complete this. And when I completed this, I sent the manuscript to Tushar Gandhiji. And he said that I'm very fascinated by the book. And will you allow me to write the foreword in poetry? So he has written the foreword also in poetry, and this book is very close to my heart. And my mom was very, very keen to come for the launch of this book, but she couldn't be there because she died before the book could be launched. One cold morning on January 9, 2015, she was no more, and the book couldn't be launched because she was very keen on the book. She had said that she would come for the launch of the book in Delhi. But anyway, all the stanzas are very dear to me, but I would like to recite from the last pages of his death when he had died. His heart had stopped, his voice was stilled, into many a heart a fire he had instilled. His adversaries were mighty, but this man of piety, with a solitary perseverance, the earth had tilled. The King of England, Archbishop of Canterbury, mourned the loss of an impoverished country. Chiang Kai-shek and President Truman rued the death of so fine a man, nations shocked by this loss extraordinary. The Dalai Lama of Tibet, the President of France, dignitaries world over were in a trance. In times of utter moral decadence, this man of non-violence had towered over pygmies, commanding reverence. So just three stanzas.
Just hearing you say that, I mean, makes you sort of visualize the scene, right? At least from my perspective.
Thank you so much. And let me tell you, when I was writing this death scene, there were tears streaming down my cheeks, and I was so involved. As one of my friends remarked that you seem to have been in a trance while you were writing this. I was in a trance while I was writing this Ballad of Bapu, and also when I wrote a biography on King Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah, I heard about that too, and now I'm curious to read that one too. But coming back to the present book, most Indian people, even if they have never read one book about Mahatma Gandhi, think that they know a lot about him, right? Good or bad or ugly, like you were saying about that MPhil student.
Yeah.
What 4 or 5 things would you want people to learn from your book about Mahatma Gandhi?
Actually, this book is written with the youngsters in mind who don't know anything about Gandhi. My MPhil students did not know anything about Gandhi. They had not read his autobiography, and they were bursting their lungs criticizing and maligning Gandhi. So that is why I asked this student, do you know anything about Gandhi? Have you read his autobiography? Have you read Hindu Swaraj? He said, nothing. No, madam, I don't want to read. I don't like Gandhi. Hitler is the need of the hour. So this was written with the youngsters in mind. So as I keep telling them that if you criticize someone, first you have to know something about him. Whatever we know about Gandhi is through his writings, and he had the courage of his convictions. Whatever follies he committed, he wrote about them. He candidly confessed to his follies, and he was evolving all the time. So this is what I want the youngsters to know: the courage of his conviction, the way he evolved throughout his life. He was learning to the last moment. He was learning, and people cast many aspersions on him. They hurl accusations and insinuations at him. But he was trying to evolve every moment. He was trying to change himself every moment. Till the last day, he was trying to change himself. So this is very important for the youngsters to know, that if you are criticizing a great moral icon, you have to know something about him. Only then you can criticize him. You can't possibly talk through your hat. You are hurling accusations at him, and you get hold of all the bad things. And you should always remember that he was an ordinary human being. And secondly, we should not put him on a pedestal. He was an ordinary human being. Through his grit, his determination, his resilience, his moral gumption, he was able to rise above the ordinary people like us. So that is very important. We should realize that we should not put him on a pedestal, but always remember this, that an ordinary man who was afraid of snakes, who was afraid of multiplication tables, who was afraid of ghosts, who used to stammer while talking, who was an introvert, and such a person was able to rise above the ordinary people and become extraordinary. People spew venom at him. There are many naysayers, there are many detractors, but they should not forget that he stood for non-violence, and non-violence is the need of the hour.
Santosh, let me take you to a different part of Gandhi's life now from your book. On page 2 in the book, so pretty much in the beginning, you say the inspector of schools set a spelling bee. He misspelled kettle. The teacher tried his best to make him cheat. He rejected this deceit. The truth was not to be toyed with, even in jest. Now, I fully agree with you that Gandhi evolved and learned and became what he became through his evolution. But is it true, like what you say, that even in childhood he was not willing to lie?
Yeah, he was not. He was full of this veracity. No, he had this veracious spirit. He was always telling the truth. He was always speaking the truth, and this he had learned from his mother. So even when he stole something, a piece of gold or silver, he confessed his guilt. He wrote this on a piece of paper because he was not a mendacious person. He did never he was not mendacious. He did not speak. He always spoke the truth. So he was even when he did something wrong, he confessed his guilt.
Later in the book, on page 14, you write, his Bombay sojourn turned into a disaster. Mohan remained but a briefless barrister. He failed to make a go, so felt absolutely low. Sans money, sans cases, lost was this character. So could you tell us a little bit about this, like his initial step with making his career?
He came to realize that in order to be a lawyer, you have to be a liar. In order to be a lawyer, you have to lie. You have to be a liar. So he couldn't be mendacious. So he kept twiddling his thumbs there. He felt like he wouldn't be getting any briefs because he couldn't lie. So that is what I'm trying to say here. Because he was not in his nature.
And for both of these things, like these are historical facts, or these are like rumors?
No, they are not rumors. They are historical facts. He was not mendacious at all. He was veracious. And whatever we know, even the bad things that people cling to about Mahatma Gandhi, we know because he confessed. Because he confessed. He was very true to his own self. He was always listening to his inner voice. So whatever aspersions people cast on him, they don't know the exact story. So this is what I keep telling people, that if you have to harp on Mahatma Gandhi's bad things, do harp on them. But remember that he was an ordinary human being like us. He had his fads, foibles, his idiosyncrasies, but he was trying to learn from his follies. All along, he tried to learn.
Santoshji, I have a friend, a professor friend here, who likes to say that never in the history of the world has there been so many books in print for people to read. And yet people's source of information is WhatsApp University, where we have no credibility on what's written. So I fully agree with you that people should read more about our icons in India. And yeah.
You should see the rumors that are circulating in this so-called, whatever you call it, WhatsApp University, and pictures and very ugly, misconstrued facts about Mahatma Gandhi. And people are not willing to learn. People, whatever this WhatsApp University says, they take it as the truth.
Right.
So
before we open the floor to the audience for questions, which we encourage them to either write in the chat box or ask in a few minutes, I want to move the focus from Mahatma Gandhi to you for a minute. Can you tell us about the trajectory of your life from birth to becoming a writer?
Well, I still don't consider myself a writer. If at all I'm a writer, I'm a mad writer, because I can I can write on anything under the sun or the moon or whatever. So I keep hopping from one topic to the next. So, and when I was a child, I was a brat. I was a prankster of the worst sort. I had never planned on becoming a writer. But in school, the nuns, they were always out to punish me because I was always up to some pranks. They used to tell me that I have got a very fertile imagination. Once I remember they made me stand in the assembly and they said, this Santosh Bakaya is going to become a writer one day because she's a glib liar. She's always full of excuses. She's always full of pranks, but she's got a very fertile imagination. But she said this in the assembly, but one day she'll become a writer. I had no idea what a writer is supposed to do. I had no idea, no dreams of becoming a writer. But maybe that got some way in my mind. But I had never planned on becoming a writer. But when I was in the 6th standard, there was a girl. A girl came from Mumbai. It was Bombay then, and she would sit in the last bench and she would keep scribbling something. I've related this story so many times, and she would write something. And she had a very arrogant air about her. So I went up to her one day and asked her, "What are you writing?" She very arrogantly, she told me that she was writing a limerick. And I did not know what a limerick was. I went home and asked my daddy. He was a professor in the English department. He was a reader then. And he told me what a limerick is. And he started reciting poems of Edward Lear. And I got hooked onto Edward Lear and I started writing in limericks. And so much so that I started speaking in limericks. And the school girls, they would scurry away on seeing me. Are Santosh, aa gayi, bhago. Yeah, she'll start talking in limerick. She'll start speaking in limerick. So that, so that was the beginning. You know, I started with limericks. That is why limericks was so, etched in my mind that I wrote this entire book in the rhyme scheme of limericks. So 300 pages of limericks, AABBA rhyme scheme.
So
but then, of course,
I'm going to bring the focus back a little bit on your childhood. You never told us where you grew up, which university your father worked at, what your mother did. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
My father was here in the English department, Rajasthan University, and he was the head of the English department. And we were here. We stayed in the university quarters. My mother basically from Kashmir, but Papa had left Kashmir long back. And my mother was a homemaker, but she was well conversant with Urdu. She picked up Hindi in Rajasthan. She did not know Hindi then. She knew Kashmiri, but she picked up a smattering of English too. But people never knew that she was not well conversant with English, but she spoke English with that proper accent and all. So people thought that she was also well educated, but she was only a matriculate age. But she was very smart, and she was a very good cook, and she was a great mother, of course, like all mothers are. So
And
she was just
given that your father was a professor, was there environment for reading books in the house? Was it encouraged? What did you have books around in the house?
yeah, there were books scattered all around the house. And in fact, all of us, my 5 siblings, we used to read a lot. My elder sister, and we had this background of theater also. My elder brother, he retired as chief secretary Jammu Kashmir, and he was into theater. He was a very good writer too. But he was multifaceted. He was a good writer. He had so many plans, but ultimately he had landed up in the bureaucracy, and he kept saying till his retirement that he never wanted to be a bureaucrat. He was also into writing. All of us used to read a lot because there were so many books all around the house, and we read everything. Every book. I was in the 12th standard when I had 12th. No, I was in the 10th standard when I had read every book of Dickens. I had read every play of Oscar Wilde. So I got hooked onto literature because of Papa, because there were so many books. And he would never tell us to read. He would just put the books in strategic positions, and about before 8, every evening, there would be discussions on the books. And Papa had a dinner gong too. He would ring that bell, and all of us would clutter around the room. And he would, one day earlier, he would tell us which book was to be discussed, and he would discuss that. So this environment was of literature all along, Hindi and Urdu. And Papa was good at Urdu and Farsi also. He did not know Hindi, but then he picked up Hindi in Rajasthan. So his Hindi became so good that his students used to tell him, sir, आप तो कहते थे आपको हिंदी नहीं आती, आप तो बहुत अच्छी हिंदी बोलते हो. So he would say things like antar anushasanaatmak adhyan, interdisciplinary approach and all, because in Rajasthan people prefer Hindi to English. So he picked up Hindi also.
Okay. So now let's sort of get back to this book. When you told people you're going to write a whole book in poetry, or a whole book on Mahatma Gandhi, about whom so much is written, what reactions did you get from people around you, family, relatives, friends?
Well, honestly speaking, I never told anyone that I was writing a book on Mahatma Gandhi. Because I myself did not believe that I would be able to complete this humongous task. It was humongous. Only Renu Kaul Verma believed I would be able to do it, because she kept prodding and cajoling and coercing me. So I never told anyone. But when it came in the market, people really gasped, and people started buying it, and it sold pretty well. And in fact, the first copy I gave to that student who had made fun of Mahatma Gandhi. And he was very happy. And someday I'll show you the pic of that guy. He's a lecturer now. He teaches Gandhian studies. And that is my greatest. So, and he said, madam, someday I'm going to translate this into Hindi. I said, Zarur kariyega.
So my understanding from what you described is that pretty much the publisher, Miss Renu Kaul, kept you on track in terms of writing. You might have lost the motivation to finish the book. Is that correct?
I never had, honestly speaking, I never had the motivation. As I told you, I'm a mad writer. If anything catches my fancy, I start writing. So it was Renu Kaul Verma all along, and Papri Sri Raman, the editor, who kept cajoling me, forcing me to complete the book. And they were the ones who put these pictures in the book, which has embellished the book beyond words. Some rare pictures.
When I was reading the book, I was showing some of the pictures to my wife, saying, this is how Gandhi looked in his day. And, this is some of the things he was doing, because a picture speaks 1,000 words,
I had nothing to do with the pictures. That was entirely Renu Kaul Verma's and Papri Sri Raman, the editor's work. And hats off to them. And I keep saying this everywhere, wherever I go, that 80% of this, the success of this book is because of the publisher and the editor. They did a wonderful job.
Now, Santoshi, tell me this. You credit Edward Lear for limericks. Is there any Indian tradition of limericks in any form?
Honestly, I don't know about that. I don't know whether any Indian Hindi writer has talked of limericks, but I know only of Edward Lear and so many others who,
Right.
and no idea about that. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. I was just curious because I once heard Javed Akhtar, the noted author Javed Akhtar, say that a lot of traditions for which we credit the West, and he used rap as an example. He said
Okay.
tradition in Indian literature also. People just
Okay.
know about it. So I was curious if that's the case for limericks.
Honestly, I don't know about that.
Okay. So as I was reading the book, I could not help but think that most of us know the famous incident of what happened to Gandhi on that train, and and the throwing out the ticket conductor throwing him out on the platform in the train. But in the book, you mentioned that so many things happened during that going to the destination in South Africa, like not just one thing that most of us know. Could you maybe explain that a little bit more?
So there were so many derogatory words that were used for him. He was called a coolie, and once when he went to the court for the first time, he was asked to remove the turban. And from when he was made to sit in that restroom in Pietermaritzburg, he sat there mulling over what was going on, what this injustice and all. Then he was taken to the hotel. He was not allowed entry there. So these were small things that kept hammering away at his mind, and he kept thinking that what he should do about all this. Pietermaritzburg incident was, of course, there in his mind all the time. He said that I was born in India, but I was reborn because of this Pietermaritzburg incident, and the accusations, the insinuations, the derogatory words that were used for him. Even in the coach, when he went from the Pietermaritzburg station to the hotel, he was made to sit in the coach, he was made to sit on the floor. That was also rankling in his brain. So there were so many injustices that were there, etched in his heart.
And was it common for the Indian community in South Africa to do this?
Yeah, it was very, very common. All of them were called coolies. They were called coolies. And it was, coolie was a very, very derogatory term, and they got sort of used to this word. So Gandhi did not like this at all. He said, why should you get used to this? So this is wrong. So he took up cudgels on their behalf, and he had gone there only for a year, and he stayed there for 21 years, taking up cudgels on the behalf of these indentured laborers. So they were called coolies, and
Santosh,
they were serfs.
we know from reading your book, and of course, all of us who've read other books about Gandhi know how much he evolved during his life. From a shy teenager, as you describe in the book, going to England, to finally becoming Bapu, which is the title of your book, Father of the Nation. What lessons do you think Gandhi's life offers to our youth and our leaders today, like contemporary youth and contemporary leaders?
Well, of course, veracity is very, very, very important. Mendacity should be shunned at all costs. And we find people these days, they are glorifying the murderers of Gandhi. Murder can never be justified. Killing can never be justified. So the leaders of today should realize that truth and nonviolence is for all times. We cannot do away with truth or nonviolence. It should always be there. And the politicians should also realize that. I remember when Mahatma Gandhi had come to India in 1915, after 21 years in South Africa. Gokhale had asked him to keep silent. He had asked him to look around and keep silent and don't utter a word. But he was very keen to speak up. So in his very first meeting, he was in Mumbai, I think. He was at a meeting where Firoz Shah Mehta was also there, and he saw all those people very in opulent attire and all. And so he said things to them. First, strip yourself of all this, whatever you're wearing, and then talk of poverty in India. And you talk of Swadeshi. I don't see any Swadeshi here. He was very disappointed because he had in his mind when he came to India, he said he felt like an alien because he had imagined something else and there was something else here. And he said, you are talking of Swadeshi, but where is the Swadeshi here? People are writing pamphlets in English and all, and the attire that you're wearing, it's all English. So there is no Swadeshi here. So, and then when he went to this inauguration of Benares Hindu University, where he was invited by Annie Besant in the year 1916, all the princes were sitting on the dais in their grand attire, opulently bedecked. So he got up and he went up there in his half-naked glory, and he said, "Strip, you are talking of poverty. Strip yourselves of your jewels first, then talk of poverty." And Annie Besant had to plead. Annie Besant had to say, "Gandhi, please sit down. Gandhi, please sit down." And there was a lot of hooting by the young students and cheering by the youngsters, and the princes left the dais in a huff. So he, as Nehruji says, that he came like a breath of fresh air in India and yanking the people out of their stupor. So we have, of course, a lot to learn from him.
But so I guess that brings me back to my question, which is, if someone is a young person, I'm assuming you have grandchildren, or young children or grandchildren or nephews or nieces. What if they ask you, what can I learn from Gandhi today? Gandhi was born more than 100 years ago on 2nd October, which is today. But times have changed. We live in this new age. What can we learn? Writing this book, what did you think they can learn?
He used to say that truth and nonviolence are as old as the hills. They were important then, they are important now. Whatever the so-called WhatsApp University says or talks of, tries to convince us, we should realize that truth can never be done away with. Violence is not to be eulogized. Any person who is violent, we cannot justify murders. We cannot justify murderers. We cannot put the murderers on pedestals. So what is Gandhi's message of truth and nonviolence? It was important then, it is important now. And he believed that we can evolve. He had, of course, he was an ordinary human being. He was idiosyncratic, he could be eccentric. He had his fads, foibles, his peeves. And Sarojini Naidu also used to make fun of him. Tagore also used to make fun of him. They used to have this banter and all. But the main thing is that he stood for truth and nonviolence. And we should always remember that truth and nonviolence can never be done away with. And no murderer can be glorified. No murderer can be glorified or justified. The murder that has been committed cannot be justified on any ground, because murder is wrong, killing is wrong.
Santoshji, we have a very interesting question from Sunil Kaushal. I'm going to invite him to ask his question on camera. Sunilji, do you want to go ahead and ask your question? Sunilji?
Sorry, I won't be able to come on camera because my Wi-Fi is very low, so I can only speak.
Please go ahead.
Santoshji, I wanted to know, how did writing this book influence your own lifestyle? Did it influence in any way? And especially, as you say, you were famous in school for telling lies, whether true or not, I don't know. I don't believe in that.
But I used to lie is just a rumor that I have spread.
So there goes your lie. So again, you were lying.
I try not to lie. Yeah, that rhymes.
So Santoshji, how would you respond to the original question? How did writing this book influence your own lifestyle? Did it influence in any way?
How did writing
this book influence about Gandhiji, influence your own lifestyle in any way? That was Sunilji's question.
As all my friends know, that I am not an evil person. I am not a bad person. I am very loving. I am very forgiving. I am very compassionate, and I am a simple soul. And I try not to lie. I am not a mendacious person. I'm not a fake person. And whenever I have committed anything wrong, I confess. So and I'm simple, and I'm basically a simple person. And I can be pretty naive at times, that my friends will know. the things
those
that I
are
am.
your attributes which we are familiar with always. Of course, we've interacted with you so intimately over these years. But what I want to know is, did writing this book change anything for you at any point of time in
Change
your
anything.
thinking?
His values, of course. I have sort of imbibed his values because my papa was also a Gandhian, and in our family also, those values were there. The values that Gandhi stood for. I have imbibed those values of truth and nonviolence, and I cannot, wherever there is violence, I try to raise my voice. And in my writing also, I have raised my voice against injustice. I have raised my voice against violence, and I have written poetry against violence. So this is how it has influenced me.
Thank you. The only violence I know about you is bullying me into writing my part two, my book.
That is the only
You
violence
are a
trick in me.
big bully. That's the only violence. You're a lovable, adorable bully.
Santoshi, we have a question from a child. So, can I ask you a question? Alka, Navisha, do you want to go and ask your question?
Good evening, ma'am. My teacher is saying that write a poem. So how can I write a limerick?
Is that Ria?
So, Santoshi, let me paraphrase the question. The question is, how does a child learn how to write a limerick or a poem?
Is that Ria?
No,
Ria?
that's Navisha.
Okay. Okay. I told you that Edward Lear was the father of the limerick, and the rhyme scheme of a limerick is A. There was a man from Nantucket who kept all his cash in a bucket. He had a daughter named Nan who ran away with a man, and as for the bucket, Nan took it. So a limerick is written this way in this rhyme scheme, A. So if you start practicing it, so you'll get the hang of things. I started writing limericks when I was a 6-year-old, I think, or a 7-year-old. And I became so familiar and very well conversant with the form. So anyone can write a limerick. It's the easiest thing on earth.
But Santoshi, I assume that when you were writing limericks at 6 or 7, the quality was not that high, right? It improved over time, like one improves. Is that correct?
Pardon?
I'm assuming that when you started writing limericks at 6 or 7 years old, the quality was not that high. You improved over time.
Not high. Still not high, because limericks are meant to lampoon and caricaturize people. So the limericks are supposed to be very silly things, But in this rhyme scheme of this book, I have not tried to lampoon Gandhi. I have just tried to use the rhyme scheme of a limerick. So, but limericks are supposed to be funny, nonsensical verses.
Yeah, that's what I think adds to the charm of the book. Even though it's expected to be, because it's limericks, it's expected to be nonsensical. It's actually a biography, a serious biography of Gandhi. So
yeah, that's why it is different. It has the rhyme scheme of a limerick without the nonsense part. So I have tried to make it in a way that would appeal to the youngsters.
Seemaji, do you want to ask your question on camera?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Vishal Gupta ji. Santosh ji, I have a question.
Hi.
Hi, hello. It's so good to be a part of this lively discussion. And my question is a very general one. It is that why is a narrative denigrating Gandhi gaining ground in today's India? And what is the way to counter it?
I didn't hear you properly. Please repeat it.
I'll repeat my question. Why is a narrative denigrating Gandhi is gaining prevalence in India today? It is becoming stronger. And what is the way to counter it?
Because of the mindsets, because of the negative mindsets of the people all around us. And the only way we can, the antidote to all this is by writing more and more about Gandhi. Whenever I get an opportunity to speak about Gandhi, I just go helter-skelter. And in fact, this is something very nice to know that in this month, my friends who are here, they know that in September, October, I'm very busy. I don't say no to any workshop or talk I'm invited to. Wherever Gandhi is to be discussed, I go there. Despite the fact, once I remember, I was busy the entire day. I gave 4 talks on Gandhi, and in those talks, I was able to change the mindsets of many people. And I still remember, and I keep repeating that. There was a young child, 13, 14-year-old, and he raised his hand. He said, "Madam, ये नफरत आती कहाँ से है? ये नफरत आती कहाँ से है? Gandhi क्या फिर से नहीं आ सकते?" So we have to keep instilling this into people's minds that truth and non-violence can never be done away with. Otherwise, we'll be left groping in the dark. All of us will be blind. So love is important. Truth is important. We have to keep hammering this on people's heads, the youngsters as well as the oldies who denigrate Gandhi. I admit Gandhi had his flaws. He had his idiosyncrasies. He was eccentric, but he was, after all, a human being. He was a human being, and he rose above the ordinary human beings through his grit, gumption, and resilience, and his truth. And he was experimenting with the truth all the time.
I think you are doing a commendable job, but I feel that more and more youth, especially students, young students, they need to be involved more in such workshops and talks, because they are the ones who are more impressionable and who don't know much about Gandhi.
Exactly.
As much as they should.
I was involved in many workshops, and I conducted many skits on scenes from his life, and they were tremendous hits, and we staged them here in Bharatpur, in Jaipur itself, in our institute, and in many other institutes also. And they had a remarkable influence. They did not know about anything. So many things they were not aware of. And through those skits and through those workshops, they imbibed so many things about Gandhi. And one of the students remarked, "Madam, Gandhi to वाकई बहुत बढ़िया इंसान थे. हमको और पढ़ना चाहिए." So they need to read. They need to imbibe his values. So that is very important. More and more.
Yes, I think that is. Thank you so much, Santoshi. Thank you.
Thank you.
Santoshi, before I read your book, I thought, okay, this is an interesting way of writing a biography about Gandhi. But of course, I'm not going to learn anything new because I've read so much about Gandhi, not on WhatsApp University, but actual books. So what am I going to learn new? But here's the funny thing. From your book, one of the new things I learned is that Gandhi briefly was in Madeira, which is in Portugal, and my wife is Portuguese, and I had no idea that Gandhi had ever been to Portugal. I think there are so many, and I asked her, I said, "Did you know that Gandhi was in Madeira and he got a program there and all that?" And she said, "No." So I think so many aspects of our leaders, including Gandhi's life, that we have no idea unless somebody brings them to our attention.
But let me tell you, I had a nice time writing this book. And when it was completed, I was very, very happy. And I was the happiest when during this Sart Sufi festival in Jaipur, I was one of the delegates here. And this guy, there was this guy who was looking at me continuously. And he came up to me and he thought I was Taslima Nasreen. And he said, "Aap Taslima Nasreen hai?" Maine kaha, "Nahi hu main." Then he pulled out 3 copies of this from his bag. And he said, "Madam, aap Santosh Bakaya hai, and I have carried these books from some place he had come from. And I want your autograph on these books. One is my book, the other is my wife's, and the third one is my daughter's." And 3 books he got autograph. And that was a tremendous moment for me.
And I am also planning to gift your book to people in my circle. So
thank you.
Thank you. Let me ask Zartaj. She has a question too. Zartaj, do you want to ask your question on camera? Zartaj? She may not be able to hear us, or she may have internet problems. If she comes,
sir. 1 minute,
yeah,
sir.
go ahead, Zartaj.
Sir, according to today's management and industry 5.0, what management lessons we get from Mahatma Gandhi sir's life?
Santoshji, any management lessons from Mahatma Gandhi's life that you would like to?
He of course was a great manager. He managed everything so incredibly well. He was a gardener, he was a cook, he was a nurse, he was everything, and he managed everything incredibly well. Although people looked down upon him on certain things, and he made, Tagore also made fun of his charkha, but he talked in symbols. He talked in symbols, and his management sprung from his usage of symbols, usage of khadi. He talked of Swadeshi, and then he talked of the spinning wheel, salt. That was also an entire Dandi march was managed on the basis of that lump of salt, and people sniggered at him. There is an entire paragraph on the Dandi march, entire chapter on the Dandi march, and he managed everything through symbols. So his symbolic management was great. So this is what we need to learn from him, the way he when they laughed and made fun of him when he said that when he picked that lump of salt, when he made salt, that was his management, and hordes of people followed him. So this was nothing but management. People need to learn from him.
Yeah, as I was reading your book, I was reminded of the Tolstoy farm in South Africa and how he wanted to make it self-sustaining. Of course, self-sustaining means you need to be able to do everything in-house. Could you remind the reader about the Tolstoy farm a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the way he managed everything, the way the farm was managed, the way the people were managed, the way he wielded his iron stick there. So some people don't like the way he managed it, but still he was a great manager in the sense that he was immaculate in his conception. Whatever he had in mind, he did it, and he did it incredibly well. That goes without saying.
Okay. Now let me move sort of the questions to another direction. That is, when you look at writers, who inspired you? Like, inspired you?
Well, I was inspired by lots of writers because there were so many books in our house. But Dickens inspired me a lot, Edward Lear, so many. But you talked of Indian writers. I was inspired by R.K. Narayan and Khushwant Singh because my father was very fond of both of them. And Khushwant Singh's Train to Pakistan, I read in school, I think in college. And later on, this R.K. Narayan, of course. So R.K. Narayan I love because of the way he talked. He had a simple elegance to his prose. The grace with which he talks of the ironies and angst of life, the simple things, the gentle, ironic style. So that influenced me a lot.
Okay. And what books are you reading these days?
Well, on that question, let me be a little more elaborate, because I have been getting lots and lots of books these days by some new writers. But right now I am reading 4 books. I finished reading 4 books, and all 4 are very, very good. Right now, this book is in my hand. A sonato for the poetic world, and this has been written by Dr. Ampat Koshi. He has written the entire history of the sonnets, and he has created his own sonnet. He has created his own sonnet form, the Roseate sonnet. It has 2 quatrains in the beginning, a couplet followed by a quatrain, which is the acrostic for rose. And this Roseate sonnet of Dr. Ampat Koshi, he's a professor in Carmel College, Bangalore. It has become very popular. People throughout the world have started writing Roseate sonnets. So this is a very, very good book, which I want people to read. And I just finished reading this, and there are very, very nicely researched, very, very good chapters about the sonnet. And then there is another book that I finished reading recently. That is by this poet, diplomat, Abhay K. This is Stray Poems. And this is the first time that I read his poems. I was very, very fascinated by the way he has written these poems. And they are 66 poems, I think. And most of them are short poems, but 3 poems which he has based on the wasteland. 3 poems which he talks about partition. He takes from T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland. Those poems keep ringing in my ears, and it's a beautiful book. Stray Poems by Abhay K. He's a poet diplomat. So that's a wonderful book. And in one of the poems, He writes, this was in the Fire and Sermon, this poem is there, he talks, there's a certain refrain, the saint has departed. He keeps talking of that, the saint has departed, the saint has departed. And then he talks of the woes of partition. So it's a beautiful book. And then another book which I read recently, it is a novel of epic proportions, Minotaur. It's a tale of power crazy despots written by Dr. Sunil Sharma. And it recently received the international award, Nissim International Award for Best Fiction. It is a very, very well-researched book, and it is a book for our times, and a very well-written, well-crafted, very well-delineated characters it has. And another book I would like to talk of is this book by Ramendra Kumar. And this book is important in the sense that he wrote three books, in fact, while he was undergoing his 8th chemotherapy. He's still undergoing his 9th round, and he's a very, very inspirational writer. He writes for children, and all his books are excellent. But he recently won a prize for best satire. He is a humor writer too. He has written 43 books, and he has represented India throughout the world. He has gone to these literary conferences. He was here also in this Jaipur Literature Festival, and he has traveled throughout the world with his. This book is a wonderful book, and I want every kid to read this, because we talk of fairy tales, we talk of Grimm's fairy tales, and we talk of the other fairy tales with that Western structure. But he talks to the children, to the Indian children in an Indian milieu. And the characters here are very, very cute. And in fact, I want everyone to read this. So these are the 4 books that I completed reading just now. And he has written another book, which I have just received. And that is about, I haven't finished reading it. That is about real stories about patriotism, because in the present scenario, we find people talking about patriotism in the sense that as if they are the ones who are the real patriots. And he has written some very, very, very nice stories about real patriotism, what real patriotism is. And I plan to finish the book. So these are some writers I read recently, and I enjoyed every book.
Santoshji, after this call in my email, I will ask you for the names of these books. I could not write down all the names, so I'll ask them. But as I'm going through my notes from the interview that we are doing, I realized I never asked you where you went for college, and did college play any life in your evolution as an author?
No. Let me reiterate that I never thought I would become a writer. In school, I wrote those limericks, then I forgot everything about it. Then later on, I joined this group, the Significant League. It wasn't the Significant League, it was Rejected Stuff then. And Dr. Ampat Koshi, he started it, and he added me to the group. It was there that I started writing again. Earlier, I used to write, but I never considered myself a serious writer. But in TSL, in Rejected Stuff, it was known as Rejected Stuff then, I started writing. And then it was a funny coincidence. I asked her what I was supposed, because Facebook was very new for me. I did not know what Facebook was. I had just joined, and I was just sitting there, sitting pretty, doing nothing. But then when he added me to this group, I asked him, what am I supposed to do here? He said, you're supposed to write. So then I started writing this. I started writing something which was very scary, which was very stupid, which was very surreal. But I started writing this on Rejected Stuff, and somehow, I don't know why, Dr. Ampat Koshi, he has this award, Real International Award for Poetry. He gave me that award for that poem which ran into 100 pages. And I don't have that copy here because I have given away all the copies. It was, this poem of 100 pages was published in the Significant Anthology. And later on, it became a full-fledged book of 120 pages with illustrations by Avijit Sarkar, who is in Perth, Australia just now, who is also another versatile writer, multifaceted person. He does so many things.
Santoshji, my question still got left unanswered, which is, where did you go to college and what did you study in college?
College here in Jaipur, Kanodia College, Jaipur.
And what did you study, English literature or something else?
I was an English literature student, but because of the fact that my father was the head of the English department, he did not allow me to do English, my post-graduation in English. He said, "Agar tumne top kar liya, to mere par ungliyan uthegi." This, I still remember this. So he did not allow me to do my, and I had never thought that I would do my MA and then my MPhil, my PhD in political theory. English, of course, I studied. It was in honors, but I was not allowed to do literature post-graduation because my father, he said nothing doing. And because if you top, खुदा ना खास्ता, these were his sentences. खुदा ना खास्ता अगर तुमने top कर लिया तो मेरे पर उंगलियां उठेंगी. So he did not allow me to do that. So I was heartbroken. But then, of course, I read.
Santoshi, there's another question I want to ask you based on our conversation. I did not know your Kashmiri background and that your brother was the chief secretary of the state of Jammu and Kashmir. My question to you is, given how much hunger there seems to be among Indian people these days to learn more about Kashmir, maybe because of what's been going on in the media, maybe what's been, the movies and all that, do you foresee you or your brother writing a book sort of from the vantage of what he saw happening there?
He was in fact approached by many publishers. In fact, Renupal Verma asked him to. He was asked to write because he's an excellent writer. He writes very well. In fact, he was the editor of his college magazine, and then he got this scholarship also for studying abroad, this creative writing. But then there was simultaneously so many things happening. So Papa wanted him to join the IAS, and he had to. But people approached him. Renupal Verma also approached him for writing a book because he was very much there. He was very much in the thick of things. He was the commissioner when things went awry. So he was asked by many publishers, he's still being asked, but he doesn't have the time right now.
And you think you would maybe take on that task then?
No, I'll not be able to. I'm into writing funny things these days. So I'm writing a very funny book. I'm writing 10 books simultaneously. So I don't think I'll be able to do that. I don't know. I wasn't there in Kashmir, but Bhaiya would have done a wonderful job. And I keep scolding him. And his friends also keep telling him, "Tum kya kar rahe ho? Tum likho." But he initially started writing. He wrote 2 chapters. They were excellent chapters, but then he didn't complete it. I hope Bhaiya is listening and will think of writing. But he could have written a great best-selling book because he was.
Now you said you are working on 10 books simultaneously. What's the book that you're most excited about of those 10 books? Can you tell us a little bit more about?
I'm excited about 2 books. One is a novel, and I have been excited about this book for the past 5 years because I have not been able to complete it. It is a satire on higher education, and it has many humorous incidents, and it's almost complete, but I am again culling and honing it. That I'm very excited about that. I'm also very excited about the sequel to Oh Hark, that won me a prize, the Royal International Prize. And it is a murder mystery in verse. Oh Hark Part 2. Oh Hark Part 2. It is complete, but I'm waiting to send it to Avijit Sarkar, who is going to illustrate it. It is a murder mystery in verse.
I'm looking forward to reading at least some of those 10 books.
And it has a parakeet who talks. In the in the book, there is a parakeet who talks nonsense.
Okay. I'm looking forward to reading. Now you write across genres. It's like, the Gandhi book is a biography. You are writing non-fiction. You are writing poetry and non-poetry, it seems.
Yeah.
Advice to budding authors, people who want to write but haven't written yet or are struggling. What would be your advice to them?
These days the youngsters, they are in a hurry. They are in a hurry to get their books published. And they keep sending me manuscripts, unedited first drafts to write forwards to. And initially I couldn't say no. I would do the editing myself. I would change the entire thing and then I would write the foreword. But then that took a toll on my health. I would be correcting those things and all. But they are in a hurry. They don't read. They are in a hurry to get the books published. They don't observe things. They don't look around them. And the advice to them is to keep your eyes open, your senses alert, and read a lot. And make corrections. If you have written something, that the first draft should not go to writers for their forewords. You should keep honing it till the last moment. And as I was saying just now, I don't talk to people about the first books that I wrote, because I committed the same error that the youngsters have been doing. I sent my first draft of my first book, which was written on the Enid Blyton pattern, the mystery series. I wrote 7 or 8 books. I sent 3 to the publishers. They did a brilliant job. The books did a brilliant job, but the publishers did a very, very shoddy job. And they sold all the books, and I got quite a lot of money, but they were very shabbily done. So this is my advice to the youngsters, that they should go over the manuscript at least 10 or 20 times, and then keep honing and editing it till the last moment that you send it to the publisher. That is very important. And read a lot. People don't read.
Santosh, what you just said about reading reminded me of the conversation we had last week, 2 weeks ago, with the author who wrote a book about Satyajit Ray. And one of the things I learned from reading her book was that people like Satyajit Ray and other people like him who achieved a lot of success in films used to read a lot of literature.
Exactly.
Unless you read, you don't have good ideas.
And the argument that youngsters these days give, they say, "Madam, padhai se kya hai? Hum apna likhenge. We'll create our own. We don't need to read. If we read, we'll not begin on a clean slate." One of the students said, "If we read other classes, how will we begin on a clean slate? Some incidents from those old classics might creep into our writing." So this is the argument that they give. We want to begin on a clean slate. We don't want to read. So reading is very, very important. Honing your art is very, very important. And I have been trying to do that all the time. And before sending the book to the publisher, I edited at least 10 or 12 times. So that is very important.
And Santosh, what you said also remind me of an interview I heard with Javed Akhtar, the noted film writer. When he's asked, why do we not get good quality films these days? He said, how many of us are encouraging our children to read at home? If they read good stuff, where will they get the ideas to write good films?
Exactly.
They will write based on what they are watching, which is usually not good.
So reading is very, very important. Observing is very, very important. And you have to look around you. I write this column, Morning Meanderings, and it has become very popular because the dialogues there are very real. Because I pick these dialogues from what I hear outside. And in fact, on one of my birthday parties, my daughter and my husband, they were there with me. And I was observing a particular man. He was talking to another man and both of them were drunk. And I was continuously looking at them, and my daughter nudged me. My husband kicked me in the shin, saying, "What are you doing? It's your birthday." But I was busy collecting the matter for the story. And that was the first funny article that I wrote. And it is part of my book. So all those dialogues, they are real dialogues there. The scene was real. So you have stories scattered all around you. You're just to pounce on them and make them your own.
Yeah, I heard a famous Indian film writer also say that a lot of his good stories came from his struggling days, because back then he used to observe people in the buses, trains, and going around in the market. And he said, ever since I became successful, I don't get to observe common people anymore. So, yeah.
So observation is very important. And there are youngsters who say, they talk of writer's block. Of course, writer's block is there, but in one of my TED Talks, I have talked of this writer's block being a myth. I tell them that people suffer from this, but I have never suffered from this, because this is maybe because I write simultaneously on different genres, and I keep skipping from one topic to the next, and I keep my mind, my senses alert. So therefore, I don't suffer from this writer's block. And one of my students in my creative writing class, I had given them something to write, and the very next day he came and said, "Madam, I cannot write. I have this writer's block." So this was so funny. I said, the very first day you got a writer's block, how can you become a writer if you want to if you want to write?
Santosh, I feel like I could keep talking to you and learning from you all day, but we have a constraint of time. So let me stop here and say thank you very much for your time. I enjoyed very much talking to you, and I learned a lot.
It was wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening.
Have a good rest of the evening. Bye-bye.